Greetings, my name is Christopher McClung and this is my critical assignment presentation for Communications 403 at California Baptist University. For this presentation, I am discussing the effect of violence in teenagers due to playing video games. I chose this topic as my presentation because I am a high school CTE instructor who teaches animation and video game design. Therefore, research for doing this was useful for my personal understanding in my own workings of teenagers and working with video games as well. So all the video games have been popular ever since Pong came out and was released in 1972. Many would agree that gaming became a growing trend and a rising industry unto itself on October 18th, 1985 with the release of the Nintendo Entertainment System, also referred to as the NES. Since the release of the NES, many kids, like myself, grew up playing video games with heroes like Mario, Sonic, and Zelda. And we are now everyday gamers teaching our children of our own the experiences that come with playing video games. According to the website onlineeducation.net, the current statistic of gamers in the United States are as follows. 65% of U.S. households play video games. 49% of the households are people who are ages 18 to 49 years old, with the average gamer being 32 years old. 2 out of 5 gamers are female, and the average gamer spends 18 hours a week playing video games. So therefore, video games are a part of our everyday social culture. Whether you are an avid gamer getting your hands on the newest Super Mario Bros. Game, or you are just a casual gamer playing the newest rendition of Angry Birds in the DMV, games are everywhere. And although games are everywhere and a part of our everyday culture, many believe games are the roots to teens today being socially inept and increasingly violent. Much of this persuasion is stemmed from the devastating Columbine shooting that occurred in April of 1999. 2 shooters, Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold, were known to play violent video games such as Doom and Wolfenstein 3D. In addition to the Columbine incident, Sean Woolley, a habitual player of EverQuest, committed suicide in 2001, and of course there's the unfortunate incident of the shootings at Sandy Hook Elementary by Ryan Lanza, who again was an avid video game player of Call of Duty, Mass Effect, games such as those. Within the last 17 years, there are a significant amount of suicides, murders, and massacres that all involve people who claim to be avid video game players. It is assumed, due to these unfortunate circumstances, it is assumed that many average teenagers who play games are often thought of as this.
Friss das, du Hurensohn! Ich werde dich einfach abknallen! Mit der Assault Rifle werde ich dich einfach abknallen! Oh, welcher Hurensohn schießt auf mich? Irgendein Hurensohn schießt auf mich!
Therefore, is this video accurate? Are gamers really the cause of our population, specifically teenagers, being increasingly violent? The realistic truth is that no one knows for absolute certainty if there is an increase in aggressive behavior from playing violent video games. In 2005, there was a legal hearing of Brown versus the Entertainment Merchants Association, in which Governor Schwarzenegger intended to ban the sale of certain violent video games to children unless they had parental supervision. Although his ban and his law was not passed and the hearing was unsuccessful, 3 scholars involved with the legal briefing calculated that over 100 experts support the theory that video games have negative effects. Although their calculations estimate that over 100 experts gave this opinion, the truth is that this is still just their opinion. Although there has been hundreds of studies researching the correlation between violent video games and violence, there are still yet to be a significant indicator that games cause an increase in violence in teenagers. In 1999, David Satcher, who at the time was the Surgeon General of the United States, said, "We clearly associate media violence to aggressive behavior, but the impact is that it's very small compared to other things. Some may not be happy with that, but that's where the science is." In 2005, the American Psychological Association released an official statement regarding this matter, which says, "There appears to be evidence that exposure to violent media increases feelings of hostility, thoughts about aggression, suspicion about the motives of others, and demonstrates violence as a method to deal with potential conflict situations. Comprehensive analysis of violent interactive video game research suggests such exposure increases aggressive behavior, thoughts, angry feelings, psychological arousal, and decreases helpful behavior. Studies suggest that sexualized violence in the media has been linked to increase in violence towards women, rape myth acceptance, and anti-women attitudes, and that the APA advocates reduction of all violence in video games and interactive media marketed to children and youth. That research should be made regarding the role of social learning, sexism, negative depiction of minorities, and gender on the effects of violence in video games and interactive media on children, adolescents, and young adults. That it engages those responsible for developing violent video games and interactive media in addressing the issue that playing violent video games may increase aggressive thoughts and aggressive behaviors in children, youth, and young adults, and that these effects may be greater than the well-documented effects of exposure to violent television and movies. That it recommends to the entertainment industry that the depiction of the consequences of violent behavior be associated with negative social consequences, that it supports a rating system that accurately reflects the content of video games and interactive media. In 2010, Anderson's group published a meta-analysis of 130 international studies with over 130,000 participants. They reported that exposure to violent video games caused both short-term and long-term aggression in players and decreased empathy and pro-social behavior. You would think that would answer the question. However, at the Texas A&M University Laredo Department of Psychology and Communications, within their Ferguson said, taken together, the meta-analysis range from those which argue against meaningful effects to those which find weak effects. Thus, the debate on video game violence has been reduced to whether video game violence produces no effects or almost no effects. Ferguson and Kilburn criticized Anderson's study for methodological flaws, including failure to abide by quantifiable measures of aggression, for using the results of their own or colleagues' research as 75% of the study's premise, and for failing to include dissenting studies. John Grohl, who was also a psychologist in the area, supported this same view. In 2010, after a review of the effects of violent video games, the Attorney General of Australia reported that even though the Anderson meta-analysis of 2010 was the pinnacle of scientific debate at the time, significant harm from violent video games has not been persuasively proven or disproven, except that there was some consensus that there might be harmful to people with aggressive or psychotic personality traits. So, a lot of studies have been done. A lot of research has been gone into whether or not video games are indeed a increase in aggression and if they are violent. However, in all of this, it is still yet to be proven that video games make people more violent. So now, fast forwarding to 2014, Ferguson says that they have still found no correlation between video game violence and bullying or delinquency in children, especially those with pre-existing ADD or depressive symptoms. So, in conclusion, the assumption is that video games, especially violent video games like Call of Duty, Doom, and Battlefield, should have a significant impact on the aggression that are displayed in our teenagers. However, after 60 years of research and books authored on this subject, like The Seduction of the Innocent by Frederick Wortham, scientists, psychologists, authors, and scholars still have yet to find a definitive correlation of violence between violent media and youth. Although there are positive steps to filter the media experiences youth encounter, like the Entertainment Software Rating Board, also known as the ESRB, it is still up to parents to be involved and proactive in the media encountered by their teenagers. Thank you for listening.